It's right now just at 6 o'clock. If we can call an order and roll call, please.
Member Chiesa,
Here.
Member Graywall, Chair Condit,
Here.
Chance Condit, Member Withrow,
Here.
Member Lopez,
Here.
Alternate Member McFadden,
Here.
Member Swallen,
Here.
Member Escutia Brayton,
Here.
Member Wright,
Here.
Member Graham,
Here.
Member Gilbert,
Here.
Member Clausel, Alternate Member Call.
Here.
Sorry, Member Phillips.
Here.
And Member Gokin.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Shannon. If we would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, moving on into the agenda is time for public comments. Members of the public may address the policy board on any item not on the agenda. Comment shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there any public comment about items not on the agenda? Anything online? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. And we are going to move on the agenda, move up 7A to right after public comments, which we're going to. So if we have presentations, and I know we do, if we could have presentations 7A.
You have slides ready?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tony Harris, Manager of Strategic Project Delivery, and I'm here to present item 7A. And if you could bring up the slides, I will go through it. All right. This is a hearing on the adoption of resolution necessity for some parcels and right-of-way that's needed for the construction of the State Route West Dakota to Gates project. Next slide, please. I will walk through, here's like an agenda for the presentation. I will first talk about the project description, the resolution necessity required considerations, summaries of the resolution necessity finding, and then also present staff recommendations for your consideration. Next. The project limits that we're really talking about is State Route 132 West from Needham Street, which is near State Route 99 to Gates Road, which is where it will connect back into the existing State Route 132. Next. The improvements that we're particularly talking about tonight is from Gates Road to Dakota. It will construct a 2-lane expressway. There will be overcrossings at Hart Road and Dakota Avenue, and then a roundabout to reconnect back into the existing facility. Essentially, it would extend what you see in blue that was previously constructed as the 2-lane facility expressway. Next, please. This is to represent to show the right-of-way that's needed for the construction of the project. Caltrans acquired quite a bit of right-of-way previously for this project, and that is currently shown in blue. What is shown in orange is the right-of-way that is currently been acquired by Stancog for the construction of the project. Next. So resolution necessity for considerations. In order to adopt the resolution necessity, the board is asked to consider and find for each RON, and this is for each one of them, the following. 1, the public interest and necessity requires the project. The project is planned and located in a manner that is most compatible with the greatest public good and least private entry. The property sought to be acquired is necessary for the project, and the offer required by section 7267.2 of the government code has been made to the owner of record. Next. So first, project interest and necessity required. The State Route 132 project will improve mobility through the western part of Stanislaus County. It also would improve the capacity for regional movements of traffic and goods. It will also enhance and improve the circulation for local roads and connectivity and provide route continuity. Next. Plan in a manner that would be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. The draft environmental document considered 5 different alternatives, including no bill. There was extensive planning and analysis of the different alternatives that took place including community input, along with assessing the impact of the project was considered and weighed in to mitigate to the greatest extent possible. Caltrans approved the CEQA/NEPA environmental document and route adoption April 21st, 2022, and confirmed that alternative 2, which is alignment 2, as the State Route 132 West preferred alternative. Next. So the property sought to be acquired is necessary for the project. Tonight, we'll be talking about the Mengetti property. There are 2 APN parcel numbers associated with that, but also we were talking about the Cooper parcel as the subject of tonight's resolution necessity hearing. Next. This, again, is an exhibit that pretty much shows where those parcels are located. In red on the right-hand side, you see is the Mengetti property. Its property is acquired where actually the main line will actually go through and be constructed on that. It's a partial acquisition. And then you have the Cooper property, which is adjacent to Hart Road, where right-of-way is needed for the actual improvement on Hart Road as you approach the overcross and go over, along with an access easement. Next. So again, a little bit more detail. The Mengetti property is shown in green. It's a partial acquisition. It's been needed for the actual construction of the actual main line of State Route 132. Next. And again, on Cooper, you see it's adjacent to Hart Road, which runs up and down on the map. There's a partial acquisition that's needed for widening and improvements on Hart Road as you approach the overcross, and that would go up and over the future State Route 132. Next. So offers were made in accordance with government code to the Mengetti property owners. It was made in June 20th, 2025, and to the Cooper property owners, it was made December 15th in 2025. Next. So staff recommendations is 1, find that the public interest and necessity requires the State Route 132 project. 2, find that the project is planned and located in a manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. 3, find that the subject parcels or interests therein are specifically described in the resolution necessity that's part of the agenda in your package and is necessary for the project. 4, find that offers were as required by government code has been made to the parcel owners of the property to be acquired. And 5, recommend that you adopt the resolution necessities in the form that was attached to the staff report and the attachments 1A through 1N. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, Tony. Any questions from the policy board? Charlie?
Thank you, Mr. Harris. So you said offers were made. Were they denied? Did they counter offer, or you just not hear from them, or?
No, we have not received counter offers. There's been some discussions. I know in particular, the Mengetti property has basically moved forward with doing their own appraisal. In particular, with the Cooper, we have been in discussions about some of the more details about what the right of way is needed. I want to emphasize that the resolution necessity that we're asking you to adopt is so we can move forward, get order possession to meet the construction schedule. That does not mean we would not continue to try to have discussions and negotiations with the property owners throughout the process.
You know,
I don't have a question, but I want to hear from Charlotte because there's another component to this rather than just the Mengetti's getting their own appraisal.
Okay.
That's okay.
any other questions from the policy board on this side? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call up Charlotte Mitchell.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. My name is Charlotte Mitchell. I'm with the California Farmland Trust, and we have a permanent conservation easement that is on the Mengetti property that is being proposed for partial acquisition. And we're just urging the board to not accept the resolution of necessity at this time, even though we understand that there'll be continued negotiations. with the Mengettis, the property owners, but I just want to provide a little context, I guess. And this is not really in regards to approving or opposing the project itself. We know that roadways need to be improved for the conduit of traffic, including farm equipment that is used of that road as well. But it's the process of which this property that's been encumbered by a conservation easement. So back in 2008, we worked with the Mengetti family to purchase their development right. We paid them for that right. We hold the easement, and we've been stewarding that easement ever since. So with that, we did receive recently from StanCog a letter with an accompanying packet from the appraiser stating the value of the conservation easement. Although the report does not provide any supporting evidence for how the appraiser arrived at the value of the easement, it is an attempt by StanCog to meet its obligations under state law before the condemnation proceedings begin, even though it wasn't a compliant offer. I want to also say that there's a distinct and important distinction between the type of transaction that we have that I think will hold some clarity for all of you. CFT holds a partial property interest in the Mengetti property, not a tenant interest, for example. Unlike a tenant agreement, which a landowner can cancel or amend directly with that person or entity, a partial interest cannot be changed or conveyed without the participation of all interested stakeholders. As a result, StanCog or any other government entity in this position must negotiate with both CFT and the landowner. And I think thus far, we were just considered another entity, not even contacted originally by StanCog. We had one meeting with them to discuss what is this easement, and I outlined a process in which the government entity should follow civil procedures as well as state law surrounding conservation easements, and that was really the end of the discussion. It was left to the Mengettis to negotiate with us, the California Farmland Trust, that value of the easement, which is not the procedures that are normally handled and certainly not outlined under civil code and state law. So in this case, StanCog is directing the Mengettis to negotiate directly with CFT instead. This effectively shifts the burden of taking the process onto the landowner. A comparable situation would be a government entity requiring a landowner to negotiate directly with, let's say, PG&E on the government's behalf for a property taking. CFT, so that was in context of the differences. You wouldn't send the landowner to negotiate with PG&E under a project that you're taking, for instance, in this roadway. It would be the same thing for CFT. So we're not opposed to the infrastructure project, but certainly want to have some good faith discussions with StanCog as a partial interest holder along with the Mengettis as we go through this. I think there's no need for a resolution of necessity at this time. We are very conscious of the timeline that StanCog is under for this project. Certainly don't want to hold it up unnecessarily, but as we are responsible for ensuring that the funds that we use to purchase the easement are returned to the public entity, which is the State Department of Conservation, the State Attorney General also has to be sought approval for this process, for this taking of the easement. So there is some really concentrated hard work that has to be done on our part, the landowner's part, and ensuring that we have all the approvals that we need for the conservation easement. I'm happy to answer any other questions that the board may have.
So the appraisal that you received from StanCog has no backup documentation or comps or any of that, how they came to the value, because they already have a valuation You're not saying that the valuation is right or wrong. You're looking for what the valuation is of your easement on the property, correct?
Correct. The letter stated a number, a percentage of the fee title taking. And while that's fine, I'm not sure where the appraiser would have derived at that number. And the report doesn't really go into detail, or doesn't go into detail at all about how it came to that number. I know what our value was at the time of the purchase of the easement, and what the State Department of Conservation paid in regards to that. So we have a good basis to go against of what that value of the easement was at time of recording.
And the Department of Conservation is typically the largest funder, right?
Yeah.
And you owe the money back to them.
We owe 80% of the funds that were used to purchase has to go back to the State Department of Conservation in this situation that use those funds, 80% of the total taking. The others go to the Great Valley Center, which was very instrumental, and we still need to owe money back to the entity that has taken through the Great Valley Center. So there is money that has to be returned.
Has this happened on a development agreement in the past?
We have dealt with these issues in the past of conservation easements and eminent domain issues, yes. And there were always in a friendly manner as opposed to this one, which we consider unfriendly.
Go ahead.
Ms. Mitchell, is your agency disputing the percent or the number that was articulated in the StanCog appraisal for the value of the easement?
We just received that very recently. So it's not in line with what the other diminution of values for easements are. So it's inconsistent with other valuation of conservation easements. So at this point, I can't tell you if we are accepting or disputing because it wasn't an offer. It was just merely a stated sentence in this entire report of what that appraiser thought that the value would be of the easement.
It was a statement. It didn't not have a monetary value attached to it?
No, it was a percentage and it was not an offer. It was just merely a observation, I would call it, of the appraiser.
Any other questions for Charlotte? All right, thank you, Charlotte,
Thank you.
for being here tonight. Next up is Katie Cooper.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Katie Cooper, and I'm here.
Katie, if you could just pull that mic down.
Sorry,
Thank you.
is that better? Okay. Thank you for having me and in this opportunity. So my name is Katie Cooper, and I object to the project and urge the board not to adopt a resolution of necessity to exercise an eminent domain over my property. My family and I moved to our home at 531 North Hart Road in 2017. At that time, it was about 10 acres of old trees and a small home. Since then, my husband and I have built a shop on the property, had our son, replanted the almonds, and recently remodeled the home. Those changes represent not only a significant financial commitment, but also our family's commitment to the land and our community. Not only will this project interfere with the access point to our home, but it also interferes with our business. The project will take out the access road to our shop that houses our business of the land leveling equipment and at least a row of our trees, which are only about 8 years old. This affects our livelihood and deprives us of the peak production years of those 50+ trees that we have incurred costs over the past 8 years for. This project will have an immense detrimental impact on me and my family. As I've discussed with staff, we've talked to people with MID regarding the pipeline for those 50 trees, and there are better avenues to achieve the StanCog goals that impose less severe damages to us. And I ask the board not to adopt the resolution that will take away from our property. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Any others?
Can I ask a question?
Katie, come on back.
Just, Kate, are you disputing the amount of money or the access? Because they can't not allow you access, right? That's the core
So
component.
they're taking away the access to the shop. I think at this time, we just got representation that we do want to have an appraisal as well, getting our own appraisal for that. And then we did have suggestions about the pipeline. I think that's like our biggest concern, is moving, it's the way it's mapped. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's curved to take out our trees instead of going straight along the property line. And which would make, would not, we would not, we had lose our trees that way. So that's kind of what we're disputing at the moment and trying to take alternatives for.
Thank you, Katie. Are there any others like to make public comment? Come on up.
Yes, my name is Scott McElhern. I'm an attorney with Downey Brand. I represent the Mengettis in this, and so I'd like to follow up with the presentation that Charlotte did. I'm a partner at Downey Brand, and I specialize in eminent domain law. I submitted a letter to StanCog objecting to the adoption of the resolution of necessity. At this time, specifically, my clients have not received a standalone offer and have not had an opportunity to negotiate with StanCog for the acquisition of the fee interest in the property. StanCog claims that the offer to my client comprises the total value of the property, including the fair market value of the conservation easement that Charlotte had described. And that if my clients accepted the offer, they would need to deal with the California Farmland Trust separately. Not only is that inconsistent with Public Resources Code, Section 10261, but its own appraisal. And this is the appraisal that was submitted with the first written offer back in, I believe, June of this year. It says it's only valuing the land subject to the conservation easement, that it's not valuing the conservation easement. So that's what the offer that was made to the Mengettis stated. So the question is, how can my client accept an offer and then be required to negotiate with the holder of the conservation easement out of the compensation that expressly does not include the value of the conservation easement? From my client's perspective, good faith negotiations have not occurred and a statutory offer has not been made. Earlier this month, however, as Charlotte had indicated, my client received a subsequent appraisal, although the letter specifically says that this is for quote unquote informational purposes only, and it was not accompanied by a standalone offer under the government code. It was not to my clients, the Mengettis, and to the holder of the conservation easement as is required under California law. So it is acknowledged that the California Farmlands Trust has an interest in the property. There's a specific public resources code that directs how offers and how compensation is to be made to the landowner and the holder of the conservation easement. And that is, again, Section 10261. This specific statute that was enacted for just the situation before us. The statute identifies compensation to be paid directly by the public entity to the fee owner and the easement holder. And specifically it says, whenever an entity exercises the power of eminent domain to acquire land subject to an agricultural conservation easement under this program, the condemnor, the public agency, shall pay just compensation to the owner of the land in fee and the owner of the conservation easement as follows. So you have to pay both. One is the owner of the land in fee shall be paid the full value that would have been payable to the owner but for the existence of the easement, less the fair market value of the easement as determined by an independent appraisal and be provided an offer at the time of condemnation. And then sub 2, it says the program and any other contributing parties, if so provided in the easement, shall be paid the value of the easement at the time of condemnation. So the statute expressly requires an appraisal to be issued by the public agency that states the fair market value of both the fee simple interest subject to the easement and the easement interest. Once the fair market value of both interests is established, an offer, as required under the government code, needs to be made to the fee owner and to the easement holder. That hasn't occurred in this instance. Rather, only one offer has been made that my client cannot accept because of the existence of the conservation easement. StanCog would not because it's one offer for the entire taking that doesn't divide up between the interest of the fee owner and the interest of the easement holder. So my client couldn't accept it because then there's still compensation that has to be paid to the easement holder, and it's not allocated. And so the problem being is it's not a standalone offer to the Mengettis. Should StanCod decide to move forward with the resolution of necessity and a subsequent complaint in eminent domain, there is a real risk that a court will find that the resolution of necessity was improperly adopted. In that event, StanCog will be unable to obtain prejudgment possession, which will disrupt the project. Further, StanCog will be liable for litigation expenses should the right to take be determined by the court to not be available because an offer was not made pursuant to the statute. This can all be avoided if StanCog would take a step back, value the interests of the property as required by the Public Resources Code 10261, which based on the appraisal, StanCog has done that, and then make a standalone offer to the Mengettis that the Mengettis can accept separate and apart from any compensation that goes to the holder of the conservation easement. And that is the process. It should be adopted. So I request that the resolution of necessity not be adopted, and so that process can move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Any others like to make public comment? Milt?
Milt Treewiler, lifetime Stanislaus County resident. From what I've heard tonight, it sounds to me like the Stanislaus County is not following the law, and that's very bad thing. That's a very bad thing to do. So I think you should grant what the gentleman has asked for and follow the law. Thank you.
Any others like to make public comment? Anything online? Bring it back to the policy board for more questions and or motion. Charlie?
Yeah, I have some questions. Mr. Harris? So who is the attorney for this project on our side?
He's right here. I have him. Art, you want
Okay,
to
could he
address it?
address some of the accusations or
Yes.
concerns that have been made? I'd kind of like to hear.
Would you introduce yourself and
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, board members. Happy to address some of these comments. First of all, let me back up and explain to this board Public Resource Code 10261, which Council McElhern just advised you on. He used the word offer when he was describing Public Resource Code 10261. Public Resource Code 10261 does not contain the word offer anywhere in its language. In fact, Public Resource Code 10261 only talks about how compensation should be paid to a property owner and to a conservation easement holder. The purpose of that code section is to ensure that there's not duplicative compensation. I'm happy to read the Public Resource Code to you again so that you can actually sort of follow along and listen to the words. What it says is, whenever an entity exercises the power of eminent domain to acquire land subject to an agricultural conservation easement under this program, the condemnor shall pay just compensation to the owner of the land in fee and to the owner of the easement as follows. The owner of the land in fee shall be paid the full value that would have been payable to the owner but for the existence of the easement, less the fair market value of the easement as determined by an independent appraisal at the time of condemnation. At the time of condemnation, how compensation should be paid is what this code section is talking about. It is to ensure there's no, again, duplication of compensation, such that once you determine, and you know, in law school, we always talk about sort of the bundle of sticks when you're buying a piece of property. It contains a number of things that you're purchasing. We're purchasing the bundle of sticks here, which is the entire piece that we're acquiring. To the extent somebody else holds any sticks to that bundle, that person then has essentially a claim or an apportionment. So if that property, and in this case, I believe it's $708,000 is what the offer is, the conservation easement holder has a stake in that a portion of that $708,000 needs to be paid to the conservation easement holder. This code section specifies how that value should be paid. It does not say that at the time of the offer, we need to make separate offers. Because in fact, we can't make a separate offer because the code doesn't actually require that we make a separate offer. Somebody, I think Ms. Mitchell earlier mentioned, PG&E. It's like if you've got an easement on a piece of property, or PG&E, which is a good example, has a utility easement on a piece of property. When you're purchasing that property, you pay for the full fee fair market value. You don't go out and pay the property owner the value of their interest in the land and then say, but I'm going to deduct the value of this utility easement that exists on the property owner. I'm not going to pay it to you. I'll pay it to PG&E. That is for PG&E and the property owner to determine as among themselves what their respective apportionment values are. Now, in order to make this effort easier, and we talked about this last month, when I ran into Council McElhern and Ms. Mitchell outside, and we talked about why we have not apportioned the values. The reality is, no matter what apportionment value this agency comes up with, no one's going to agree on, no one's going to take our number and say, we agree with that apportionment value. But we went out of our way and did that in the last month, and we provided them even with an apportionment of that value. And now we're being told that's not proper, or it's not good enough, or there's just not enough support. Well, we hired a highly regarded appraiser from CBRE, one of the largest real estate appraisal firms in the country, licensed in 12 different states, including in the state of California. The appraiser is a member of the Appraisal Institute. He's been doing right-of-way appraisals for 2 decades. There's a 2-page discussion as to why he believes the value of the conservation easement is what it is, and we've provided all of that in the last month. We don't have an obligation to do that. That's not what the Public Resource Code says, but we did that regardless in order to ensure that, again, we want to work with all property owners and all stakeholders and all of those that have an interest in the property. So we went out of our way to do that as well. At this point, there is nothing left that StanCog can really do other than start engaging in negotiations, and we've been doing that also. In fact, 2 more things I will bring to your attention. Interestingly, if you read the easement language, the easement that's recorded against the property currently, the conservation easement that the California Farmland Trust recorded against this property, the easement language itself says that in the event of condemnation, the property owner and the holder of the conservation easement, in this case California Farmland Trust, shall obtain their own appraisals so that they can then begin negotiations on apportioning that value. So that's number 1 I want you to consider. Their own easement document says that. The other thing is that the California Code of Civil Procedure in the eminent domain statutes specifically has a provision for apportionment of values, which discusses these very types of issues, which is when you are acquiring a piece of property, and to the extent there are various interested parties that own a piece of that interest, again, back to the bundle of sticks. If you own sticks out of that bundle of sticks, there is a mechanism in the court system for the 2 parties to then seek their interest in whatever the total compensation is. So if the total compensation is $708,000, there's a mechanism for them to have a court determine what each one is owed, pursuant to the Code of Civil Procedure. That's in the statute. I'm happy to answer any further questions if this hasn't
All right, I have
been
a
clear.
couple more. So
Sure.
you didn't give me your name, but so anyway,
Martin Shaverdian with Nossaman. My apologies.
thank you. So you said that an apportionment has been done and that there were separate offers given to, can we get that number? Is that available?
It is available. Separate offers were not made. Again, a full offer for the entire value of the property has been made. An apportionment has been done pursuant to the last appraisal that we provided to the parties. And I can provide that number right now. The total fair market value for acquisition of the of the interest, which is about 14 acres, is $708,000. On page 218 and 219 of your packages that are before you, the appraiser goes through about a page and a half of discussion on apportioning the value of the conservation easement, and he reaches a value of $35,400.
35, and what is, is that an acre or acre and a half? I mean, I didn't get that far. How much property is the easement we're actually talking about?
The acquisition, the total acquisition is 14 acres, $708,000. The entire 14 acres is encumbered by the conservation easement, and the appraiser has opined that the value of the conservation easement is $35,400. And so if you follow the Public Resource Code, and if this were established as the full fair market value of the property, we would pay $708,000 less the value of the conservation easement to the property owner and the value of that conservation easement to the CFT.
So he's saying the 5% here.
Correct. But again, both parties would have to agree with that, right? Because if one party doesn't agree with what they're getting, then we can't pay that out to anyone. Which is why the statutes created the Code of Civil Procedure, the apportionment statute that I discussed earlier, for the court to determine sort of splitting the values.
Okay, and so if we were to approve this resolution tonight in regards to this, these two parcels, before any eminent domain was done, that would still have to come back to us, correct? After negotiations, if for some reason they weren't. I mean, we're just setting the procedure forward. If the actual eminent domain was to occur, would that have to come back before us?
No, if you were to adopt this resolution of necessity, that would provide StanCog the ability to file a eminent domain action, which would be a court action, and both parties would be named in that action, and that would provide a forum in which they would then be able to obtain their own appraisals and exchange those appraisals with us, and then we would continue those negotiations.
Are we paying for both of their appraisals?
We have extended, per the statute, the amount that's available to property owner to obtain their own appraisal.
But there's two appraisals that need to be done, and we give them 25,000, right?
No, it's actually 5,000 under the statute to the property owner. And the statute specifically says to the owner of the property. It does not say to a easement holder, but perhaps that's something that the agency can consider at some point. But that is not an issue, of course, that, relates to the adoption of the resolution of necessity.
So anything that costs them money that we're putting on them, that's why we reimburse for their own appraisal, right? That's the theory here. We give them an offer. We give them the option to get a second appraisal, and then we look at both of them. But now if we're going to put that on their backs, because they need two appraisals, that's the way I look at it. The Mengettis need an appraisal, and the Farmland Trust need an appraisal. So are we expecting one of them to pay for their own appraisal?
Well, again, what I can tell you, Supervisor Chiesa, is that the statute requires that we reimburse the property owner up to $5,000 for their appraisal. The statute does not require that we appraise every interested party in the action. That's a decision that StanCog and its staff can make if they would like to extend an additional $5,000.
I don't know what the Mengettis got paid, but no one would give an easement on their property to never develop for $2,000 an acre on a $50,000 piece of property, take away a property right. It doesn't seem right to me, again, but I'm not an appraiser, and I know that I'm sure they paid a lot more than that. Again, the reimbursement to the Department of Conservation, so the way I look at it right now, Arden, is that, I can meet the findings on the need and the timing, but if we allow you to go forward today without making them whole on their appraisal, because they're going to have to figure it out between the two of them, one way or another, whether we do it or whether they do it themselves. I think the price is okay. It appears to me that over $50,000 an acre is the value. a development easement decreases the value of the farm ground. So that's what everyone needs to understand. If the ground is worth $50,000 an acre and someone drops an easement on it, it devalues the property because it takes away a right off of that, and they pay them for that. And I don't know, there's 4 or 5 easements, I think, in this county. And so, again, I understand the reason they're concerned, because if I was on their side and I have to pay back the Department of Conservation, I'd be concerned too. And in negotiating with the landowner, I know what the rules say. I'm just telling you right now, but it's a tough pill for me to swallow at this point. And without us paying for both, giving them the ability to get appraisals themselves, 2 of them, we pay for it, keep them whole, so that they're not out of pocket, because that wouldn't be my intent. That's why we allowed the Mengettes to go out and get it. We've done this 100 times at the County Board of Supervisors, and we always want people to feel like they got a fair appraisal if they don't trust what we're doing. And this just doesn't make me feel good.
So if we were to vote to, say, give a reimbursement for appraisal up to $5,000 to the Farmland Trust, would that be legally permissible and not a gift of public funds?
Well, again, as part of negotiations, staff has latitude to allow that if they would like. But again, the law currently doesn't provide for that. If what you're asking is, can staff authorize that? Again, as part of negotiations, in order to reach an amicable resolution, I think staff can probably do that should they wish to do so. But what we want to be cautious about is, again, because the law doesn't provide for that, we don't want to be setting precedent, right? We could have other properties, not necessarily a conservation easement, but we don't want to set precedent so that the public agency is having to pay $5,000 for an appraisal for every person who claims that they have an interest in a property.
So is it legally permissible or is it not legally permissible?
Member Gogan, thank you for the question. It is likely permissible. We can verify that response before taking any particular action on that. We haven't found anything, and correct, if our reading of the statute is that it is not required, but it also says that it's not forbidden either. So we will verify that. We do have the resolutions of necessity before you this evening. Valuation is not at issue for purposes of the RONs tonight. Perhaps if it's okay with the board, we could bring back the question of reimbursing another entity or property interest for their appraisal costs at the March meeting, as I believe we will have additional State Route 132 updates at the March meeting, and we could bring that as an item at that time.
Well,
Please use your mic.
It doesn't work for me. Yeah, that's a hope and a prayer that we're gonna okay. I think right now I have I'm of the stance that we pay for it. We agree to pay for it as a board, or at least
so,
that's my.
so this is agendized tonight, so that would fall under our purview the way this was agendized.
That is correct.
All right, then I will make a motion.
Hold on, Charlie. Gary, go ahead.
Just a couple quick things. So I totally agree. Oh, I just wiped my ashes off. Darn it. So I totally agree with Vito that we need to make sure that we make whole the Mengettes for this whole thing. And Charlotte, appreciate you being here tonight. I think actually myself and Vito were probably at the Mengettes when we had a little celebration of them you guys purchasing this easement, and I totally commend the Mengette family for what they've done, which was just unprecedented at the time to try to save farmland. And back in another life, I was actually on the Stanislaus County Farmland Trust. So I appreciate all that. And Mengette family, we've known for 45 years at least. And Kate, I haven't met you before, but I appreciate your concerns. And these, as we always say, these darn RONs are no fun, and they're painful for all of us to go through. And it's not something easy, but our goal is to make sure that everybody is fairly compensated for what's going to happen here. And I think as long as we can get, at least with regard to the Mengettis, to make sure that there is not out of pocket for this appraisal. I know Pete, back in the day when he told us, everybody knew that this land back there was going to be a freeway at some point, and we were going to have to deal with this. And just knowing Pete and Kathy, they knew this day would come. And so, Kate, I'm sorry, you guys bought your later and probably never even knew about a freeway coming this way. Yeah, and so, but I think it's crucial, this process that we're going through, that we have timelines that we have to meet, and we just can't miss those. And this allows us to make sure that we still are going to meet those timelines. But as everybody said here, it doesn't mean that we are not going to make sure that everybody is fairly compensated. We will make sure everybody is fairly compensated for these properties. And as we go through this process, it's the ultimate goal for all of us that we make sure that happens. So I would move forward with a motion. I don't know if Charlie already did it, but I would, move forward with a motion that we accept the RONs. And, but it would only be on the condition that these, an additional appraisal is paid for by StanCog to, for both parties, so there'll be 2 appraisals, which would be an addition, up to additional $5,000 out of our pocket. As we go through these process, I mean, that's nothing. As we work through the process and try to arrive at these values so many times, like I said, at the county, we do it all the time. We're reimbursing people for moving costs when they lose their houses, but there's always things that we can throw in here. I don't see how we couldn't do this and make this work. So that would be my motion.
That was going to be my motion, so I'll second it.
There you go.
Just real quickly, I just want to make sure that, just for clarification, what is the cost of an appraisal at the moment? Because if we're going to, we might as well put a number to the motion.
You did 5,000.
Just 5,000?
Director Lopez, the policy we've been operating on and working with Caltrans and oversight is we can reimburse up to $5,000 for each one of the appraisals that the property owners can get. So with the Mengetti family, with the offer, it was basically saying they could be reimbursed up to $5,000, which is the policy, and it would be the same what we would do with the California Farmland Trust.
And I just want to add it, I don't want to, Kate, we will do everything we can to make you guys whole through this thing, including trying to minimize the damage as far as easement in and out. And I've seen Tony work miracles here in some of these things with some of your neighbors actually out there. We've met out there with them and had original plans that just didn't work out. And then we were able to change and have them come from different directions, so it minimizes. So I just want to give you that assurance for what that's worth, so.
We got it. Okay, I've got a first and a second. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote, please, Shannon.
Member Chiesa? For the record, please, Member Chiesa?
Aye.
Chair Condit?
Aye.
Alternate Member McFadden?
Aye.
Member Withrow?
Aye.
Member Swallen?
Aye.
Member Squisha Brayton?
Aye.
Member Wright?
Aye.
Member Graham?
Aye.
Member Gilbert?
Aye.
Member Phillips?
Aye.
Member Gokin?
Aye.
Alternate Member Call?
Aye.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, motion passes.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, next on the agenda, we're going to get back on track and go to 5A presentation. Pavement and bridge target analysis. Nick St. Cook.
Could we have that gentleman block the fire exit, please? He's sitting in front of the door, and if something happens, I mean, people are having to go around him and.
Hello, everybody. This is Nick St. Cook, an associate planner here at StanCog. I would like to introduce Linda Pierce from NCE. She and her team prepared the final report for the pavement and bridge target setting. And if Linda is able to unmute herself, should be able to now.
I am here, Nick.
Perfect.
All right, well, thank you, Nick, and thank you, Chair and the committee for allowing me this time. And this is really just going to be informative. This is something that we did, and so it's really there's really no action to be taken. So it's really just to let you know what the study included. So as Nick said, my name is Linda Pierce. I am a professional engineer and principal with Nichols Consulting Engineers, or NCE. And we did a study through Elizabeth actually helped us with this, as well as Nick, on setting this pavement and bridge target setting process. Next slide, please. And so what this really is back in 2017, the Federal Highway Administration, as part of the bill, as part of the funding bill, came out and said, you know, DOTs and MPOs need to develop and implement an asset management plan. And the asset management plan is specific to the National Highway System. Obviously, there's a map of the US. The blue is the interstate. The red is principal or other principal arterials. And then there's some ones that are very difficult to see because they're small routes. And then on the right-hand side, I kind of did just a capture of what the National Highway System is in California. Again, the blue's the interstate, the reds are principal arterials. I think there's probably greens and purples and yellows in some of the major cities, but it's very difficult to see on this graph. The National Highway System has been around since 1995, and so it's something that we've been managing and maintaining for quite a while. Getting into this asset management plan specific to pavements and bridges. So the DOT pretty much has to maintain the interstate system in good or poor pavement condition. So they're looking at rutting and cracking and how rough the pavement is. On the bridge side, it's a little bit more in depth. Again, poor and good condition. And they're looking at the deck structure, the superstructure, so what's holding up the deck and the substructure. There's a little bit more detailed process to do that. And as part of that plan, the DOTs need to submit a 2-year and a 4-year performance targets. And so this is the money that is allocated to them from the Federal Highway Administration needs to go to, maintaining the bridges and the pavements on the NHS. So that's where it kind of comes all together. And as far as the MPOs go, you can go ahead and adopt what the DOT says, or you can do your own targets. And so what we were asked to do is to take a look at what Caltrans was providing. They're the ones that are maintaining this process. And so they gave us a bunch of information, where are the routes, where are the bridges, what's the condition of the bridge, what's the condition of the pavement. Caltrans does that on a yearly basis, separate from anything that's done with STANCOG or by the individual agencies. They gave us a tool to work with, and then they gave us a form that pretty much said, we agree with the targets, we don't agree with the targets, and here's the changes that we would like to make. And that, I believe, was all signed by Elizabeth before she left. On the Caltrans side, what they're asking is go ahead and review this information, and then is there any change? They're now looking for the 4-year targets as well as the 10-year targets, and then obviously complete, sign, return the form. Next slide, please. And so this is just kind of a conglomeration of everything that I just said. So we've got a breakdown of the various agencies within STANCOG, number of bridges, the number of lane miles or number of miles of pavement for each entity. The first image on the left is where the bridges are located. So the green says the bridge is in great condition. The yellow says it's in a fair condition. And then the red are poor condition. And remember, just because your bridge is poor doesn't mean it's going to fall down. It's just that there's pieces of it that are less than ideal or not as good a condition as they'd like to be. The image on the right now is the pavements. And so this is just where every pavement is. And then it's the same the same type of thing. Green is in good condition, yellow is in fair condition, and the red is in poor condition. So overall, we've only got a couple bridges that are in poor condition. There's only a relatively smaller number of pavements that are in poor condition. All right, next slide, please. And so what we did is we wanted to first of all confirm on the pavement side, how accurate is the California or the Caltrans performance data that they provided. So we really wanted to make sure that it seems reasonable. And so what we did is we went back and looked at the 2025, the California statewide local streets and roads survey. We looked at the comparable 2023 report, as well as there was a pavement management program update back in 2022 that NCE did for StanCog. And so we kind of looked at all those things and said, hey, how does this make sense? Does the condition data from Caltrans match what we think is out there on the actual road? So that little table on the right kind of shows that, that based on the 2022 StanCog pavement program update, and I used that because it's closest to the 2023 date. The 2023, the local streets and roads report probably doesn't go into as much detail. So we just went ahead and used the actual survey data that NCE provided. And it really kind of shows you that the roads are actually in better condition than what Caltrans says, based on the more detailed assessment, or more the manual survey is what we did, and where Caltrans uses a more automated survey. But that's a lot of weeds. But really, it's really about saying that StanCog 2022 says, hey, almost more than half of the roads are in good condition, and there's maybe 20% or so that are in poor condition. Where Caltrans, what differs is they don't say there's as many as good, but they really have a lot more fair condition roadways. And so what we're saying is, that's probably a good assessment. Go ahead and accept the performance targets that Caltrans set up. There isn't any reason to say no to it. On the bridge side, same thing. We're looking at the National Bridge Inventory. We're looking at cost data. Michigan DOT actually has a pretty good process for assessing the deck preservation. And so we went through all that process as well. In this location, there's only 2 bridges that have a deck in poor condition. There's 1 bridge that's in fair condition. Similarly, there's 3 culverts. 2 are in fair condition and 1 is in good condition. And on the bridge side, what they decided was the best to do is to go ahead and increase the annual investment, because Caltrans said it was 0, but in reality, it's probably closer to $320,000. And they also said, hey, let's look at that deterioration rate, which is how quickly the bridge changes condition. And the deterioration rate that Caltrans says was 0.7% per year, and we suggested that it goes up to 7%. So just there's a pretty good change there. These are the recommended targets. Just for information again, these are what Caltrans says, and then we changed a few things on the bridge side, which changed some of those targets. But again, it's nothing that at this point in time, there's no decisions to be made or anything. It's just a report that says that we're good with the targets that they provided. And I think that might be my last slide. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Linda? Go ahead.
I have questions. I couldn't tell from the diagram, the 6 Modesto bridges, where they are, what you're actually referring to. And the 2 that were red, I'm assuming the one is the 7th Street Bridge, which is the northeasterly one.
Oh, hang on.
I guess,
Yeah.
rather than trying to figure that out now, as far as this report goes, I would like to at least know where the bridges are that are mentioned, the location, and then to know the status of those specific bridges. If we could get that information, because we don't have it in our packet.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. In the report itself, it's everything that we have is there. So you can actually find out where Bridge 38C0064 is located. It's
Okay, do we
actually
have
in,
access
it's in
to
the
that
report.
packet currently? O- Okay, that's what I was going to ask Linda, if we don't have the packet. So I know we aren't voting on this tonight, correct? This is just a report only?
Just a
So this
presentation.
is information, but I would like to see the information. Thank you.
And I would just like to add, Mayor from Ceres, I noticed that you had 0 bridges that had no condition listed, but in actuality, I think that we need to take a look at some information from the city of Ceres that I spoke to my city manager as of today, that we do have Service Road Bridge which has been labeled as in poor condition. I think that we need to look into that a little bit further. The member rights point, I didn't actually see the Lions Bridge on there either. So maybe there's a need to go back and reassess on some of the bridges that you guys took a look at. And I know that it's based on the documents that was provided, but I think that would be very important.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the bridges, the roads provided by Caltrans.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Linda? All right, Linda, Nick, thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Now to the consent calendar. We'll be taking all of it. Any policy board member that would like to pull any item on consent? Seeing none, any public member like to make a comment on anything on consent? Anything online?
No.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the policy board.
So move.
I have a first and a second. Shannon, did you get them?
I got member right, but I didn't get the second one.
Erica. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, guys. All right. Moving on to discussion, we'll be moving to 7B, federal and state legislative report.
Good evening. Kate Miller, Interim Executive Director. So real quickly, Congress has passed all but one of the spending bills to fund the fiscal year 2026 federal administration, except for the Homeland Security, and that is still in discussion. The Housing and Urban Development Bill included almost $2 billion increase over last year for FHWA, with a reduction of $165 million for FTA. Last week, the House voted 390 to 9 to pass the Bipartisan Housing for the 21st Century Act. The legislation proposes a range of reforms to how housing is built, regulated, and financed, and it's similar to the Senate proposal, the Renewing Opportunity in the American Dream to Housing Act of 2025. They're going to get longer and longer, these names, as we grow older, with some critical differences. And this vote sets the ground for bicameral conference negotiations between the House and Senate to reconcile two competing housing proposals over the months ahead. So stay tuned and we will keep you updated. Senate and House members are beginning the annual solicitation for community project funding and congressionally directed spending requests, which are due in March. StanCog staff has reached out to our partnering agencies to help narrow project submittals in hopes to improve the region's chances of receiving funding for this budget cycle. So stay tuned for that. On the state side, the LAO's office is projecting an $18 billion shortfall for the fiscal year 2026-27, which is significantly larger than the governor's budget proposal, which indicates a $2.9 billion shortfall. And the governor's budget also does not fund the remaining SB 125 allocation for transit, which would delay over $33 million in funding to the StanCog region. There's a lot of advocacy work to get that money into the MPO regions. Finally, the state report from Curry Consulting includes a discussion on a bill that would require wayside detectors to monitor rail traffic that could potentially impact passenger rail. That's SB 667, Archuleta. And along with other legislation of interest to StanCog introduced before the February 20 bill deadline, we will be presenting next month for the policy board's consideration and action on a number of new bills. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Kate, any questions for Kate? Seeing none. Moving on. A motion to adopt resolution 2545 authorizing the interim executive director to negotiate and execute a professional service agreement with Crawford and Associates Incorporated, API, to complete building environmental sampling testing. Kate.
Yep, thank you very much. So this would authorize us to spend up to $114,000. That's the base price is $99,438, and we added a contingency, not knowing exactly what's in these homes. But these houses are those that we've acquired through eminent domain and or outright purchase for the construction of 132 projects, both the Dakota project and the 99-132 interchange project. We require that, the state requires that we actually test for any sort of chemicals in the buildings before we raise them. And so we are accelerating this because we have a number of buildings that are currently uninsured because we can't get insurance on them. So that concludes my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kate on that? I got one. There's, so it would be for 31 buildings? Is that?
It's for all of the buildings that we have. Yeah,
All
every
the
single one of
structures.
them. Yep.
Any other questions? Public, any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? Bring it back to the board for a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, moving on to 7D, motion to adopt resolution 2546, approving the fiscal year 26-27 local transportation fund LTF and the state transit assistance STA funds transit apportionments. Jean Flip.
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry. So the TDA consists of two types of funds, the local transportation funds and also the much smaller state transit assistance funds. The LTF is derived from a quarter-cent sales tax collected statewide and then returned to each county according to the amount of tax collected in the county. And then the state STA is derived from the statewide sales tax on gasoline and diesel. Today, we are just bringing this item up before you so that we can go ahead and start working on our transit cost sharing. The auditor controller for Stanislaus County estimated that we would be receiving $32 million for LTF for FY 26-27. And then the state controller's estimate for STA is $5.3 million. So we're asking that you approve the LTF and STA apportionments this evening. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Jean? Any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? Bring it back to the board for a motion.
Second.
I have a first, Casey Graham, and second, Mayor Lopez. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous. 7E, motion to authorize the policy board to select policy board members for the Measure L ad hoc committee. Kate.
Dan's trying to confirm. So let's just finish this and.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. So this item is a follow-up from authorizing the chair to select members of the ad hoc committee for the Measure L processes and procedures. And we had 3 volunteers, Member Hernandez, Wright, and Clausel.
Mayor
And
Casey Graham also committed to me
Okay.
that he would like to be on that.
all righty. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I guess the action would appoint those 4 members.
Any questions on the purpose of the Measure L ad hoc committee? I know we've discussed it many times.
How many members total are we having on that?
4 on there right now.
4.
Yeah. And if need be, I can be the 5th, but I'm not committing to that right.
Well, if you need an extra member, keep me in mind.
Well, we can do it right now. If you
Let's
wanna
do it right now.
All right.
That's why I was asking if you only had 4.
So always
Now you're,
good to
now
have.
you're
a
saying
third
there's
member.
5, so I would like to be on the,
Okay.
on ad hoc. committee.
Great.
Great.
Mr. Member Wright, Mr. Member Wright has jokes.
Okay.
It will not be the first. Sorry, the mic was off. It'd be the second time.
All right. Any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? Okay. I'll bring it back for the motion.
Motion to approve?
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, 7F, motion to adopt resolution 25-47 approving fiscal year 26-27 employee classifications and salary ranges. Kate.
There's a presentation.
Thank you. So this item asks the board to approve a resolution that would establish employee classification and salary ranges. Next slide. Adjust salary ranges annually and eliminate the automatic cost of living increase and instead adjust those ranges. Limit staffing to 20 full-time equivalent employees. Any changes to that would be at the discretion of the board. And authorize the executive director to amend the organizational chart as needed. Next slide. So why are we doing this? It establishes positions, roles, and entitlements in accordance with employment law. It enforces structure by establishing employee categories and advancement opportunities. It establishes fair compensation system across career disciplines, and it creates protections and imposes spending disciplines, which is key. And then the one thing that I wanted to make clear is that this is something that is meant to be changed periodically, and that we are just establishing a baseline so that we can implement some structure moving forward. Next slide. So our approach was, first of all, to actually work with our COG partners in the San Joaquin Valley, but nobody had done a study for anything but the executive director level. So we did do a sort of cursory solicitation among other agencies of similar size in the Bay Area, Central Valley, and the Central Coast. And 2 agencies had recently done compensation studies. That would be Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission and Napa Valley Transportation Authority. The agencies are a similar size, and they have similar functions to StanCog with some differences. So for instance, NVTA also runs a transit system, so we took all the transit planning and transit-related positions out of the classification matrix, and Santa Cruz does some similar things. It's a little bit larger agency. It does an RTP. It doesn't do a sustainable community strategies. Neither does Napa Valley Transportation Authority, but both of them do transportation plans very similar to StanCog. And both agencies are in regions with higher cost of living, which has created a little bit of discussion. So what we did was we took a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics occupational employment and wages data, and we pulled out 5 data points, and we created an average, and then we used that as a multiplying factor to reduce the salaries, and we decided to use Napa because the structure was a little bit more similar, and then reduce the salaries that the Napa salaries to with a multiplying factor of 0.9154. Next slide. And we did do some testing too, and I was started going down a rabbit hole on this, and I decided not to go there, but we did do some testing looking at our existing salaries to see if there was some consistency. And there was consistency across all classifications with the exception of two. And so we would need to bump salaries for the HR manager and for the contracts administrator position. So the staff recommendation would allow the executive director to raise individual salaries based on merit, but it would eliminate the automatic cost of living increase and instead adjust the salary ranges on the classification chart. So, and we would do that using a factor of changes in Stanislaus County and San Joaquin Council of Governments and Merced County Association of Governments, or Consumer Price Index in Stanislaus County, whichever is greater. And it could be nothing in any given year, depending on what's going on with the economy and what's going on with other agencies that are similar to us or near us. On the not, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about not having an automatic COLA. The salary ranges would still be adjusted, and employees that are at the top of the range then would get an adjustment. Also, the employees at the bottom of the range would also get an adjustment. So they would have an adjustment over time because there's only, a few groupings within each stratification. So I just wanted to make that clear. Merit increases would be limited to the salary classification caps, which helps with budgetary controls. So next slide. So the next steps would be to coordinate with San Joaquin Valley COGS, which I know Shannon's already doing, to compare salaries and return to the policy board with any significant deviations and recommended changes. So we would do that before next year. And then salary range adjustments may need to be considered if positions can't be filled. So that's something else that the executive director would need to come back and talk to you about. Board action to approve an annual COLA adjustment to salary ranges would happen at the beginning of each fiscal or each calendar year. And then, let's see, consider undertaking formal employee compensation studies every 5 to 10 years, just to have a check on where we are on our salary ranges. Next slide. We did bring this to both the executive committee, who recommended moving the item forward and discussing each of the proposed policies separately, which we've done. In addition, some concern was voiced about replacing the salary range adjustment with replacing the COLA, sorry, that's backwards, with the salary range adjustment. And Management and Finance Committee outlines concerns about salary adjustment methodology, noting that the two agencies that we use had differing responsibilities, and they also questioned not comparing salaries with other San Joaquin Valley COGS, which, as I pointed out, we are doing, and we also did some testing to make sure that our approach to identifying salary ranges was not completely off the chart. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Charlie, go ahead.
All right, I have several here. So we talk about, you referenced the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but I didn't see the charts anywhere in our packet.
I did not include them in the packet, but I'm happy to provide those. They're just a list of like 20 different labor categories in each county. They do it for each county.
Right, because I went on the BLS website today, and the volumes of data that they had there were so much that there was no way for me to know which ones you chose or which ones you didn't choose and how to compare them or to check them.
There was a link in the a reference point.
But besides
Small.
that, it says here on the bottom of the note 1 that across all BLS categories, the average salary was 9.4% lower in Stanislaus County than Napa, and 9.2%, well, actually it says Napa twice, but I think one's supposed to be Santa Cruz.
Sorry.
So I actually went and did some fact finding on my own. Home prices, Napa average, $864,000. Okay, let's start with Stanislaus County. First, average $470,000. Napa average, higher, 864,000. Santa Cruz average, 1,102,000, 134% higher. San Joaquin County, which is our neighbor to the north, 11.5% higher. Merced, our neighbor to our south, 11.8% lower, which is 414,000. Then I checked median household incomes. Stanislaus County, 79,661. Napa, 36% higher, 108,870. Santa Cruz, 109,266, which is 37% higher. San Joaquin County was 88,531, 11% higher. And Merced is 65,044, 18.4% lower. So you talk about in here that we're going to deal with San Joaquin Council of Governments Merced after we already approve these. We're going to deal with them going forward, but I don't know why we wouldn't deal with them now and include them on this. And that was the management and finance concern, because Napa and Santa Cruz are not comparable agencies. You look at what it costs to buy a home there, you look at the median family income, and you put that against Stanislaus County and say, oh, there's only a 9.2% difference. I don't see how that's possible. There was a lot of problems with management and finance, and having done salary surveys for, I don't know, about the last 30 years when I was association president, yeah, we tried to get every city in the Bay Area we could. And of course, the city always fought us because they knew, it would skew stuff. So I don't see, and I don't think any entity in this room has Napa or Santa Cruz as their comparable cities for their city staff. And so if we pay StanCog employees Napa or Santa Cruz wages, what does that do to all the competition for the departments or the cities or counties that have planners, have those same positions? I don't think this was done properly. I don't think it was done right, and I don't agree with it.
Go ahead, sir.
So I have some basic questions. If this document is identical to what we had in our packet, or if something was changed from these that we had here tonight, the larger ones?
Yeah, it's the same. You guys just asked for it on larger.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that,
Thank
so I
you.
wasn't looking at two different documents. Then the question I have is, I noticed on the salary range for engineering project directors, I noticed that the range is very wide. It's from 152,000 to 205,000. It's almost $53,000. That's a really wide range. So I'm concerned about that on the salary ranges. Then my next question is my concern also with comparables. My understanding is that we have, the cities in the valley do have like standard comparables. And I know when I was on the school board, that is an agency, if you want to talk about being specific about salary ranges, they do their comparables very specifically. So I'm concerned about that. And that, as you mentioned, that would be forthcoming. But I am concerned about approving a document tonight with so many things still left forthcoming. And that brings me to my last question. Is there any reason to do this specifically before we have a new executive director? That this would seem to me to be something that person would, be concerned about being involved in themselves.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that we have open positions right now and we have no way of establishing how much to list it for. And so we had to take a kind of do the best we could in terms of the data we had available. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so, you could put a pause on that, and then I would recommend putting a pause on hiring people. But just to remind the board that we're operating with half the FTEs that we need.
Correct. Yes. And we do understand that as a policy board, but since it is so soon, hopefully that we will have a new executive director, whoever that person is, it should be right around the corner. And it just seems to me that maybe that if there's no extreme rush like now tonight, that it might be something to consider.
So do we,
But that's not really a question. I could make that statement later.
My question's small and simple. Looking at the executive director, E53 through E60, it looks like. From Napa, it has a range from 192 to 309, but for Stancog, it's 265 for the minimum. That's a $70,000 increase for the minimum.
Yeah, the number that we used for the executive director here was what we had listed the executive director position at. Yeah.
Okay. Because, yeah, their minimum is 192 in Napa. That seems like a big difference for minimum.
I'll just add real quick. It's more of a statement. I think that it's important that we possibly table this item until we do have the executive director. So I'll agree with my colleagues over here. I think that until then, there may be some additional changes that will be possibly made when we have that director. So I would not be supporting this item.
So, I want to hear from the public before I declare whether I'll support the item or not, but my main question was if it's, as much as we know that we need new staff, if it could possibly wait.
So
Charlie, go ahead.
I'm a little confused why, when we already have a current salary range, we already have salaries for our employees, correct?
That's correct, but there's no range.
Okay, whether there's a range or not, we have salaries set for our employees. We are paying them. We could go out and recruit with that money. I've seen, can't count how many recruitments. This is the salary, however, and it has a little in parentheses or annotation. Salary is going to be probably reviewed and blah, blah, and they throw that in there. So I don't understand why this has to be approved for us to recruit employees when we already have salaries established. I don't see how the nexus, and I don't see how that's relevant.
Rosa.
Because how government entities work is you have ranges, and within those ranges, you have steps. Okay, and we don't have anything like that. What Kate and staff have done thus far is collect a lot of data with the resources she had. It's a really good start. Before we had nothing, absolutely nothing. And now we have a foundation that we could at least all look at. We're looking at numbers for the first time and in salary titles for the first time that we've never seen before. And it gives us a really good place to have a conversation from. We didn't have that opportunity before. It's not perfect. What the Mayor Zwollen mentioned in terms of that very large range of 50,000 and change that she spoke of, a government entity, which we are, would have that range, and within that range, they would have steps, affording a person to come in at different experience levels and start at range A, start at range B, the various step levels, and max out. What is put before us doesn't give us that opportunity now. But as she articulated, down the road, this can be worked on. And in terms of holding off until we have a new executive director, this is a really good place. Any new person coming in is going to want data, is going to want something to build from. This is a beautiful thing to build from. To start from nothing is not a good place if I was an executive or any employee coming into an opportunity like this. So again, this is a work in progress. It's a beautiful start. It's not the final into infinity document that we're going to abide by, but a lot of work has been put into this. As I understand it, correct, Kate, and correct me if I'm wrong, her resources were Bay Area places. To your point, they don't even compare to cost of living in our region. But to offset that, to bring that back to our region, she compared it to a database that brought that back to a more equitable rate that is to Central Valley. Is it perfect, exact? No, but that's what she has directed staff to do moving forward by looking at other COGs and other government entities, such as our cities and such as our county. So that's it.
Good. Any other comment? Dave, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, have we put out for applications for different positions. And we received applications, but they chose not to come here due to the salary range.
I can't answer that. Maybe Jean or Monica who've been, or Shannon, who have been here for a while, can answer
I
that.
have a follow-up question too. Go ahead.
We haven't found that to be the case, no.
Okay, and do we have, job offers, or do we have ads going for employees right now for different positions?
I don't understand the question.
Do we have ads out for employees right now?
You're going to authorize tonight listing the finance director position. We also are working on a job description for the planning director position. And, you know, obviously those decisions on who gets hired will be done when the new executive director starts, but we wanted to start the process.
So right now, we don't have a bunch of applications we're looking at to say, yeah, the positions are open, we're trying to look at them, correct?
Yeah, we put a lot of things on pause pending the new executive director, but we wanted to have somewhere to start, and that's the reason why we felt compelled to generate a baseline matrix. And then, you know, moving forward, we were always planning on trying to index it to the COGS, but they're in the San Joaquin Valley COGS, but they're not as forthright giving us the information as some of the other people that we've been working with to develop this. Yeah.
Jason. Go ahead.
Do our employees that we currently have fall into these ranges?
Yes, and that is the test that we did. And like I said, I didn't want to go in the rabbit hole and explain to you exactly how I tested that, with the exception of just those two positions that I mentioned, the human resource manager / board secretary, and then the contracts administrator. And not, I mean, this is probably ironically, if it's not even ironic, but they're both new in their positions. So that's partly why their salaries are so low, but we had nothing to peg it on because we don't have ranges for those positions.
Mayor, go ahead.
Is this information, the range is public information? Once it's established, is it public information?
Well, it's public information now because it's in the public domain with the packet, but
So you mentioned other COGS that you weren't able to access it, is it not
no.
public?
I mean, you know, we could file a public records request, but of course.
So that would be
it's not something
necessary to get that information from an organization? I didn't realize that. I thought.
It's not typically on anybody's website. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, go ahead and open it up, public comment.
Hi, my name's Carolyn Newman. I'm with the Stanislaus County Taxpayer Association. And there's a lot of good thoughts here. I caught a few things. I wonder if looking at the state controller's office, there's a listing of all the different job titles in the state and how much they're paid every year. They're anonymized, so there's not a name attached, but you could look at different divisions. Originally, this organization, the tier system it was based off of the county's tier system as the sort of origin point. So if you're looking for a safe sort of, for lack of a better phrase, place to retreat to, that might be a good place to retreat to. I think this organization provides a lot of good values for hybrid work and a work-life balance for hours. Right now in the state of California, there is a sort of a shortage of finance people. If Terry Withrow was here, he would tell you CPAs are very much needed. And planners are also in short supply. So organizations like this that have a very nuanced need are going to, you know, need to pay a little bit more. But I think if you have to retreat back to the county scale, at the very least, then you can grow up from there. Nobody's going to be mad that they're going to be paid more once, you know, you guys find the right numbers that you're looking for. Where else? Yeah, I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Milt Treeweiler. Yes, I do have questions about this. Again, you're talking about the basis of these figures have been questioned. And my question is, if you do accept these figures, does that mean you cannot go down? You have to do the whole thing over? You can't lower the figures if you figure out you did actually come up with a figure that's higher than it should be? And so I think you better look at that carefully and maybe wait until later. I'm not, that's your decision, but that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Milt. Any other public comment? Anything online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for more discussion, questions, and or motion.
So I mean, if we were to put out these job classification or these job hirings, I'll say not classifications, and trust me, I understand steps. But if we were to put it out based upon what we pay now and they were to get hired and then we were to, finish this properly and bring it back and they got a pay raise, I don't think anybody would be upset with that. If we set it now and then it comes back that we're significantly ahead of San Joaquin and Merced, which it will come back that way, and then is anybody going to want to move to cut their pay? I don't see that happening. So I would make a motion, we deny this.
Yeah, I got a motion on the floor. Any other?
Second
discussion?
that motion.
First and second. Is there anything in that to say it can come back later? Yeah. Okay. You're just voting no. All right, I have a first and a second. Shannon, if we can do a roll call vote, please.
Chair Condit,
No.
alternate member McFadden,
No.
member Swallen,
I want to clarify if I vote yes, that I am voting to postpone it now and bring it back at a later date, correct?
that's as far as I understand it.
Okay, so I am an aye, yes.
Member Escutia Brayton,
Staying.
member Wright,
Aye.
member Graham,
Aye.
member Gilbert,
Aye.
member Phillips,
No.
member Gokin, alternate member Call,
No.
and member Lopez.
Yes, table item.
I've got 5 and 5.
We have 5 in favor, 5 against, and we have 1 abstentions. Abstentions go with the majority and we have no majority. So motion would fail.
Okay. Motion fails. Moving on, the information items, hopefully everybody's got a chance to take a look at those. And moving on to Caltrans report. Caleb, good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me and members of the board. Thank you for welcoming me, for filling in for Director Mexio tonight. 3 statewide announcements. One is from the California Transportation Commission, CTC. So earlier this month, they allocated $988 million to expand transit capabilities, add new highway safety features, and boost the state's continued climate action goals. One local project was awarded $4,049,000 to support the Wesley Safety Roadside Rest Area project in Stanislaus County. The funding will be used to replace buildings, add walkways, create new fire access, and construct a California Highway Patrol field office, as well as a new bridge with bicycle and pedestrian
And you said that's the Wesley
Safety Roadside Rest Area.
Okay, thank you.
The second one, earlier this month, Caltrans announced major steps in strengthening its commitment to public transportation by establishing a new deputy director for transit and rail programs and restoring the Division of Mass Transportation to create a dedicated team focused on providing faster, more reliable, and connected transit services statewide. The department is also releasing its first historic director's policy on transit to support more coordinated and efficient transit and rail services along the state highway system and ultimately improving connections for millions of California residents. The California State, excuse me, Transportation Agency, CalSTA, announced a new joint effort by two of its departments, DMV and CHP, to curb excessive speeding and prevent deadly crashes. And so for a point of reference on this, each month CHP issues about 1,600 citations to drivers caught traveling more than 100 miles per hour. In 2024 alone, CHP issued more than 18,000 of these citations. CHP recently developed a new fleet of low-profile specialty marked patrol cars on the state's busiest and highest risk roads. And the speeding remains a major factor in traffic deaths statewide, contributing to 32% of all fatalities. So hopefully this new initiative, which is going to be data-driven, will reduce the driver's speed. So more to come on that, but excited to see that new initiative to increase safety. One item which some of you may be familiar with that started before I came, and that's on State Route 132, the corridor improvements out on the west side of the county near San Joaquin River. So the district has completed the conceptual report. It was just recently approved by headquarters to develop a project initiation report. So it's moving forward and it's going to become a project. The current estimate on that is $6.4 million, and they're going to we'll be installing permanent median barriers, standard inside shoulder, 6-foot wide outside shoulder, and rumble strips. And it's about a 2-mile section. So I'll be coming back with more as that develops. It's currently in early stages, but currently slated to go to construction in 2029. And then lastly, Caltrans appreciates the board inviting us to last week's board tour of projects. So my colleague Corey Casey, who's one of the project manager office chiefs, enjoyed the time with the staff. And as some of you were here, Corey gave a presentation on the State Route 132 east of downtown. We're doing a pavement anchor project, and some of the board members were pleased with the presentation. And so I've talked with Corey, and either Corey or Charlie will be coming back 2 more times this year to the board to present on projects that we're doing in Stanislaus County. And so we'll provide some documentation to the board before, so you know what we'll be speaking on. And then if you have specific questions, as a way to just share more information, you know, I'm not an engineer. I'm a planner by trade, so I don't have all of those answers. But you know, bringing the engineers and talking about the projects will be a good way to share that information with the board. So that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions or things back to the district.
Thank you. Any questions for Caleb?
I have a question. Maybe, I don't, you know, when we have votes that are difficult or a lot to comprehend, I have a hard time jumping right into the next agenda item and fully paying attention. So regarding the curbing speeding and excessive speeding, what was it in 30 seconds or less that was being done to deal with that?
So CHP and DMV are teaming up, and there's going to be a new fleet of low-profile specialty marked cars.
Okay, all right. I think I read about that. Perfect.
Yeah.
Those cars. And then the next item you referenced a certain place.
The
Not the one in East Modesto, but the one, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You referenced a certain place I was interested in.
The 132 safety project.
I think so, yes. What was that?
Okay, yeah, that's on the west side of the county, where 132 crosses the San Joaquin River.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about it?
So we're going to be installing a permanent concrete median barriers.
Oh, very good. I had a very close friend die there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I'm just going to ask,
You first.
because I just want to ask for a favor, Caleb. I had asked for Caltrans to take a look at the north end of the Stanislaus River Bridge on Highway 120, just at Oakdale, or in Oakdale. I don't know if that's in the Oakdale city limits, but it's probably pretty close. Big potholes, uneven pavement, approaching the bridge and leaving the bridge on the north side. So I wondered if you could just look that up for me to see what's determined.
Okay.
Yeah, big chunk holes and uneven pavement, so good.
That was on social media this afternoon.
Was
Did
it?
you- Yes,
Yeah, I had looked at that.
on Coffee Road, north of.
No, in
Okay.
Oakdale.
Sorry, another
Oh,
one
yeah,
was
in
Coffee
Oakdale on
Road,
Highway 120.
north of, between Pillendale and, yeah, there was
So
another one.
if you could take a look at that.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
You said the potholes are on the north side of the bridge?
It's on the north side of the Stanislaus River Bridge as you're coming in or leaving Oakdale City.
And mine is bridge related as well.
All right.
Good transition. Wasn't even planned. The agenda item that Linda, I forgot her last name, presented on, and there was a lot of references to Caltrans. This is Caltrans information. This is Caltrans data. Could you please coordinate with staff to ensure communication exchange with you and them so that they could ensure that they get a lot of bridges in various regions were identified as not being on that, on her radar. And she kept referring to Caltrans as being the entity that provided the information. So you could ensure that she has the robust, most up-to-date information on the bridges.
Yeah, I'll circle back and figure out where she got the information and make sure that we provided all of them.
Exactly. Beautiful. Thank you.
Dave, did you have something? I
Not yet.
thought you gave me the eye there for a minute. Caleb, it's always great to have you or Grace here, or both of you, when sometimes you guys are both here, but we appreciate you guys being here and always being available. Absolutely. All right. Interim Executive Director report.
Thank you. Staff participated in an overall work plan kickoff meeting with FHWA, FTA, and Caltrans staff. The OWP is a required planning and budgeting document that aids the agency to maintain focus over the fiscal year on planned projects and programs and apportions resources in a way that meets federal and state requirements. The draft OWP will be presented to the board in March, right? Yep. As part of the Regional Early Action Planning, or REAP, program, the StanCog team facilitated a Community Enhancement Zone Visioning Workshop on Thursday, February 12th. The workshop included 25 participants representing various interests, including health, education, community-based organizations, economic interests, and developers/property owners. Participants helped define the Community Enhancement Zone planning goals and objectives and provided the StanCog team feedback for improving infrastructure using key sites in Modesto to illustrate enhanced safety and to better accommodate pedestrians and transit users. And on Friday, February 13th, the community, I can't speak anymore because I'm on cold drugs, Community Enhancement Zone visioning continued on a walking tour with representatives from the city of Modesto, Stan RTA, and the county of Stanislaus, and who participated in, who shared information. The StanCog team shared information with the participants about development, demographics, and findings from the stakeholder meeting, including feedback on safety improvements. I'd like to acknowledge StanCog staff members Nixon Cook and Jean Paletta for their work on this. Also, a big thank you to Stan RTA for providing bus services for the group. And on February 11th, members of the policy board and alternates, including members Condit, Chiesa, Zuelen, Hernandez, Lopez, and Call, participated on a regional project tour of active projects and a lunch presentation on projects in pre-construction phases. I'd like to extend my appreciation to Jose Luis Caceres and Josie Oshana for organizing the project tour. I'd also like to thank Dave Lehman, the county of Stanislaus, Toby Wells, the city of Modesto, Kathleen Cleek from Riverbank, Fernanda Ulloa and Tiffany Rodriguez from Patterson, Adam Barth from Stan RTA, and Corey Case from Caltrans for their presentations and support. And based on the feedback that I received, the policy board members and staff, it sounded like it was a great success. So thank you for participating. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Kate. It was a great tour. All right. Member reports.
Now I have something.
All right, Dave, go ahead.
Okay, for City of Modesto, in September, council awarded $13.3 million contract to United Pavement Maintenance of Houston for the 9th Street Corridor Improvement Project. This project leveraged local Measure L funds to secure $25 million in affordable housing and substantial communities grant to deliver the improvement, deliver the Archway Commons development. The 9th Street Corridor Improvement Project will transfer the former state highway into a bike, pedestrian-friendly corridor with downtown connections, intersections improvements, and new roundabouts at Carver, Tully, and Needham. Project began in 2025 and will end sometime at the end of this year. That's our report.
Thank you, Dave. Any others? All right, I'll just take the time. I know Kate already talked about it, but I know we're running on a skeleton. I'll go back. Running on a skeleton crew of staff. The walking tour, I know I signed up for that, but I couldn't pull it off with my schedule. But the bus tour I was able to go on. It was a great function. Got to go around and see all the different projects, big projects that are going on. And I know you guys are working hard, but I just wanted to tell you guys that. Go ahead.
Yeah, just going back, I don't know if we really could go back, but I'm going to have anyways. Going back to item F, the salary thing. We voted it down, but I just want clarification. This is going to be brought back to us. It's going to be revamped, maybe brought down with bringing in Merced and for a little bit and
Please speak closer to the mic.
bringing some of these numbers down.
Yes, that's my assumption.
Is that,
it is
I just
coming
want to
back.
make sure we have direction going forward because we kind of
Just-
left it.
Yeah, we don't have any information really to list positions, so we could list them without salaries right now, while Shannon continues to do her work to gauge where, I mean, I still think we have to use this as a baseline for her work because we don't have one, to see where we are in relationship with the other cogs. And I know we got some feedback from members of the public about using Stanislaus County, but what we do and what the county does is different. So that is the other challenge. The cogs are probably a better index.
Well, I don't have any issue with the format that we have. I think it's more that the salary ranges are too high, like especially the starting off. Maybe
Yeah,
not the
we've
maximum,
already
but
gotten
the minimum are
feedback.
too high.
Yeah, we have, just so you know, that we've gotten some feedback already that some of the salaries are low. So, yeah. I mean, we don't, in Napa, we don't get paid that much. People commute in Napa the same way they commute here. They commute to the Central Bay Area, and that's why their average income is so high, because they can't afford to buy the houses in Napa unless they work in San Francisco. So, yeah, it's a problem we have everywhere, right?
Yeah, it was talked about before in the study. The reason those were used is because they were current studies. And so that's why it was used. I think there was a good effort to try to bring that back down. But yeah, I expect staff to bring that back at some point. All right. Any other reports? Okay. We do have closed session for items. So we will be adjourning into closed session. Bill, thank you for hanging out the entire time. Caroline, you too. Oh yeah, 5-minute break. Yeah. Hey, Shannon, I'm looking at you. We good to go?
Yes.
Okay, we are reconvening back from closed session and we do have reportable.
We do have reportable action on item 12A and 12D. There is no reportable action on items 12B and 12C. By an 11-0 vote, the board directed CPSHR to enter into negotiations with a candidate for the executive director position. If negotiations are successful, any final action on the proposed employment contract and compensation will be brought forward at a future meeting in open session.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for hanging.